Hello, everyone. My name is Valerie Stimmick-Bailey from Valerie and Belize, the Alaska and American West travel blog. I am here back in the studio to record another one of my Alaska seminar series for 2025. If you are familiar with me in my blog, you know that I've done this for several years now, and I'm back for another year. So if you're here, hopefully you are excited to learn all about Haines. And I'm particularly excited for this seminar because Haines has never had its own seminar in the past. This is the very first year that we're doing one for Haines, and it's a lovely community. Everyone who I know who's gone to Haines raves about it. And so I'm really excited to shine the spotlight on Haines and show what's so special about the destination and give you all a chance to get your questions answered if you're planning to visit in 2025. This is a pre-recorded seminar that you're watching a replay of. So I had solicited questions from my community in advance. If you have any other questions that don't get answered in the presentation or in the Q&A afterward, you can post them in the comments on this video. That I monitor those. I monitor them for years. So there are still people who comment on some of the videos from 2021 and 2023. So if you have a question or you're not visiting, you find this in 2026 or whatever, feel free to put your questions. I will still see them. And if I don't know the answer, I will reach out to the team at Haines to make sure that we get an answer for you. Without further ado, let me just jump right into this. I have Reba from Haines, and she's going to tell us all about the incredible destination that you may have never thought of visiting in Southeast Alaska. Reba, the floor is yours.
Great, thank you. So nice to be here. Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it. Giving Haines this exposure is pretty important. A lot of people think of us kind of as like, they say off the beaten path and phrases like that, when really that's not true. We're very much on the path. We're just a smaller community. And being in Southeast Alaska, we do get cruise ships, but we're not like a big cruise ship destination. So we're pretty special in that regard, especially as more and more people tend to come up on cruise lines. We are able to keep our little niche of being a truly wild and small place. And it is a very beautiful thing because we are accessible. We're surrounded by great wildlife. We're at the very top of the Inside Passage. We're just 17 miles from Skagway, but we're also connected to the road system. So it makes us very, very unique. The first slide I wanted to talk about is like how to get here. So most people, when you think of Alaska, I'm going to do the hand map. If you ever take any tours, people will do this on a map. This is the state of Alaska, and we're located here, right at the top of the Inside Passage. And you can see that on the map here. And you have Whitehorse to the north, the capital of the Yukon, Skagway south of that at the top of the Inside Passage, and then Haines a little south of that. And we're both connected to the road system, Skagway and Haines. So we're one of the last stops sometimes for cruise ships, or they'll head further on up north or bound around down to Glacier Bay and back up, up towards Whittier and the Seward area. So we're in this nice pocket of being close to the interior. When you speak Alaska anyways, it's still 900 miles from here. And then also part of the Inside Passage. So we're pretty accessible from the Bellingham, Washington area in regard to the State Ferry. So the popular ways to get here are by road. You can travel down, like I said, from the interior of Alaska, but you can also come on up from the lower 48, as we like to call the lower 48, and Canada. So we're connected to the highway system. So we get lots of RVs here. We've got tons of RV parks, from state parks to private parks. There's lots of options if you are in a vehicle, not to mention some hotels and Airbnbs and lots of just different camping spots, including boondocking. Our community allows boondocking. Anywhere outside of city limits, you can just park your rig and stay the night all on your own. So that's a really popular thing to do here. Then, of course, we have the Alaska Marine Highway, like I mentioned before. You can put your vehicle on, or you can just walk on and then travel all the way up from the Bellingham area. It's usually a three-night experience there, whether you're sleeping in a chair or have your tent out on the solarium, which is one of the first ways I traveled up, or you can get a room on the ferry as well. And it's similar to a cruise ship without all the amenities that they have, but it's a really great way to experience Alaska, especially as you go further and further north. It just gets prettier as the mountains kind of get taller and closed in. It's a really beautiful experience to ease yourself up on the ferry. And then we're accessible from Juneau. As we know, we have two major airlines that fly into Juneau, Alaska Airlines and Delta. And from there, you can hop a little commuter flight, Alaska Seaplanes. They're going just about every hour up here. So that's another way that you can access us. And then, of course, I've got the smaller picture of the screen. We've got a cruise ship in our port. We'll get, typically we'll get about 60 to 80,000 people throughout a season, which really equates to about 2, maybe 3 ships a week. And here we call ships, even the smaller lines. We get a lot of the National Geographic boats that hold 68 people, or the smaller American cruise lines that hold 200 people. Those are the really popular ways to cruise here in Experience Haines. So we're a little bit of a different community in that regard. On the next slide, I wanted to show you and talk about what life in Haines is like. So I think the best way to do that is kind of share a little bit about my experience. I've been up here for almost 30 years now. I first came up in college, and I had dropped out of college, started back again, and knew that I needed to take advantage of my summers. And so I had a friend that already worked up in Haines, and she's like, come up to Alaska, you'll love it, you'll love it. You can see this part of the country and make some money. And so I was from Oregon, so it didn't seem like that big of a leap for me. And so I came up and I completely just fell in love with Haines and the way of life. I kind of like relate it to going back in time, like being back in the 50s, kind of like the Mayberry thing where you don't lock your car doors. If you're locking them, it's because the bears are around, not because of people. And you leave your door unlocked to your house. I don't even have a key for my front door. And you wave to people. I mean, it's just a really beautiful way of life, not to mention the fresh air. And we get our drinking water from fresh springs. Like, I swear it's the fountain of youth. It's absolutely amazing. And it's just a beautiful way to live, not to mention being surrounded by this pristine area where the wildlife is absolutely spectacular. It'll change your life because you just really feel that connection to nature. And if you're not in that downtown area, then you're not in cell range. Like, you will lose your connection. And that in itself is a beautiful thing, because I do find myself needing that from time to time, where it's really good to be disconnected from all the outside and the external stuff, so you can really be connected to Mother Nature and the internal stuff and really prioritize what's important to you. And so when I discovered that in Haines, I went back and forth for a few years, but then eventually I called it home. And I'm really happy that I got that exposure. As you can see from the photo, there's the cruise ship dock right there. And then on the left-hand side, in the middle left, there's a big green open area. That's the historic Fort Seward area. And then the other part of our community is the downtown area, where you'll see in the middle of the screen above the small boat harbor there. So we get quite a few yachts and people traveling it from their boats, again, from the Washington area mostly. And then our small downtown area, we only have about 2,500 people that live spread out on the peninsula here. And so it's a really kind of tight-knit community, but we all have a lot of space. And then on this slide, you can see up on the left-hand side, that's going up into the Yukon. That's the Chilkat River there. And the Yukon and the highway system goes all the way up that left-hand side. The highway follows the river systems until you're up into the alpine areas into the Yukon of Canada. And on the right-hand side, and since we are a peninsula, we have another big river system, another inlet that comes out, the Chilkoot Inlet, and a little river over there called the Chilkoot River and Chilkoot Lake as well. And so it's a really, really special place because the rivers are meeting the ocean. And so depending on like where I live, I either have oceanfront or I have riverfront property, depending on the tide. And then there's always some type of fish or animal, except for in the heart of winter, happening right outside our doors. So it's a really, really, really special place. And it really is so special is because of the fish. We have all types of fish that come up into these rivers. So the communities below us, Ketchikan, Sitka, you know, the bigger ones where there's amazing fishing with halibut charters and salmon charters, all those fish are either heading way further up north or they're coming into our waters. And that's what really makes us unique. The Chilkat River has all 5 Pacific salmon that spawn up into that river system. So whereas the ocean is all, you know, it's a great big ocean, the river system is just getting smaller and smaller and more confined. And so when you have all those salmon running up into one valley, all spawning in different lakes, it really makes for a very healthy ecosystem. And the fishing is phenomenal. I have a 11-year-old son, and while I'm at work downtown in the summer, he'll just go down to the dock and fish for whatever's off the pier. And he's just so happy. And mostly it's just Dolly Varden, or he's getting small little flounders or that kind of thing. But it's just a really fun place to be. Not to mention the good eating, depending on what's going on, you know, whether it's halibut or whether the kings are usually the first one. You can get winter kings out here, or we like to really fish in the wintertime. We really got into ice fishing this year. So it's fun to catch those lake trout too, but always we have all the salmon up here. So it makes for a really great experience. And then that little fish, the biggest picture there is the hooligan. And I'll talk a little bit more about that later, but that's really the first fish run of the year that we get in late April. And that's pretty special and unique for this area as well. Because of all those fish, we are known as the Valley of the Eagles. It's absolutely incredible here. I would challenge anyone to walk around and not see an eagle in a day. We have 400 resident bald eagles in this community. And right now, the month of November is pretty special because we have a late run of the chum salmon, the dog salmon. And because of that, we have eagles that come in from all over the country to feed on the late run of chum salmon here. So right now there are thousands of eagles here, and it's absolutely spectacular. And I'll talk about that a little bit later because we have a festival for that. So yes, Haines, the Valley of the Eagles. So here we go. I'm going to explain a little bit about the Chilkat and the Chilkoot side. So this is a nice little aerial view of above our community. You can see that mighty Chilkat River coming over there on the top of the screen. And the Chilkoot side, we're going to go to the next slide and start talking about the Chilkoot side. So the Lutak Inlet and the Chilkat side here on this side of the peninsula, you can see these folks are up on a tour. It's the Talk Chinook tour, and it's a mountain trail that they do, and it's like these ATVs that they get to drive. And it's this beautiful experience where you're in this forested area, and it's just a lot of fun. But you get up above the Lutak area, and this inlet is known for really good whale watching, and fishing. This is where, if I'm going to go subsistence fishing, this is where I like to go. It can be windy in the area, and then this is where you're really going to go to kind of avoid the wind. And then in the far part of the photo, you can see the lake itself. That is Chilkoot Lake. So I'm going to have a few slides about Chilkoot Lake just because it really is so special. It's kind of my reprieve. When I get off work, I will take my paddleboard and I will head out to Chilkoot Lake. I love it out there. There's only really one access point from it. So besides the one boat launch and small parking lot and a little campground that's there, Chilkoot State Park Campground, you really are out in the middle of nowhere. It's completely remote. And the wildlife viewing there is absolutely spectacular. There are different tours that you can take out there. There's kayak tours, there's canoe tours. Locals will put their own boats in, or you can bring your own toys or rent some in town. Or you can go fishing out there. The sockeye salmon are the big fish out there, but there's also some pinks and silvers that run as well. But the sockeye is the first big fish run that gets into the lake itself, and it's absolutely spectacular. So here's some photos that are of the lake area. As you can see, it's absolutely beautiful. The sockeye salmon on the bottom left hand, like I was on my paddleboard and I just took a photo from above it. It's pretty cool out there. And then the photo of it to the right is some of the lake area, you get back into these coves of the lake, and I talked about like going back in time before to the 50s. This is like going back to prehistoric times. Like, it is absolutely amazing. You have these old growth trees dripping with moss, and then you can be on your paddleboard or kayak or canoe and just sit still. And if you're close to a spawning stream, you can be surrounded by thousands of salmon just right underneath you. And then there's eagles feasting, and there's bears on the shore, and it's absolutely spectacular. And I wanted to show this upper, the right-hand side picture, because it shows the river that's feeding into the lake, which confines all of that salmon into even a smaller area, which we'll talk about here in a minute. Yeah, so confining everything into that Chilkoot River, it is a great place to go fishing and bear watching. I actually took these just with my cell phone, and I've got a few photos of like a photographer taking pictures of bears with the fisherman right behind it. I was actually able to share this photo with the fisherman once the bear passed and they got out of the water, and they were thankful, and they were done fishing for the day. But it's bear watching there is world class, and we don't do a lot of promoting or marketing because it's in a state park, and it's not managed quite. It's not really managed, so we want to be careful about our behaviors in that park. But it really is a special place because it's a place you could drive to. And we get a lot of Yukoners coming down just to fish in our rivers. It's a very, very healthy stream, and we just love spending time on the Chilkoot River. And one of the reasons why is wildlife photography. This is, again, just taken with my iPhone, one of my favorite shots that I did, because this is a common sight out there. Spawned out salmon, if you can count the dead salmon in pieces all around this eagle. And I mean, it's spectacular. These eagles are just amazing on their own, but then you can also be scared off by a bear that's coming down to feed, and you just really feel like you're in the wild, because you are. I mean, it's wild Alaska, and the photography options here are just world class. You can go to any different area and get a different kind of shot, whether you want snowy mountains in the background, whether we want to be up and close to the eagles or the salmon or the bears. It's a really, really special place. And I wanted to share exactly how special it is. I mean, I consider these once in a lifetime photos, but if you have the right camera, if you're a professional photographer, you can get these kind of photos pretty easily if you're going to spend a couple days here and just be patient and hang out, because it's a given that these animals are around. It's just being in the right place at the right time. And like I said, having the patience and the time just to hang out to get these. So if you're a photographer or a budding photographer, I highly recommend spending some time on the Chilkoot River. Then we're going to take you over to the Chilkat side, the Chilkat State Park. This is another wonderful area. So this is going out towards the end of the peninsula. So this area, the Chilkat State Park, is still surrounded by the ocean. We'll get up to the river here system in a little bit, but I wanted to point out this place because you have the Rainbow Glacier right across the water from you. This is a little island my friend Terry and I, we just paddled out to. And then, you know, we did some exploring on the beach. We saw otters. We heard whales. We didn't see them, but we heard whales. There were sea lions. And then the scenery is absolutely spectacular. So really, again, this is like the nature experience that a lot of us are looking for when we travel and we think about Alaska. Haines really is filled with all of this on a daily basis. And camping, a lot of people backpack here. There are great trails. Chilkat State Park, you can hike out 8 miles to the very end of the peninsula and not see another person. You can take a boat ride out to the end of the peninsula and get dropped off and get picked up again. Like, the experiences here are world class, and the scenery is absolutely spectacular. Now we're going to travel up the Haines Highway a little bit. This is a photo from the highway. It was redone just a few years ago, so it's a great place if you're into road biking. You can do a century ride here, or we've got the Klondike bike relay, which is starts in Haines Junction up in the Yukon, 150 miles away, and ends in Haines. It's a great big bike race that happens around mid-June, so close to solstice. But just bike riding here in general is great, or just showing how really good the highways are here. I know driving in Alaska can be a challenge sometimes with potholes and whatnot, but we're lucky to have a nice brand new highway here, and it follows the river system up. So it's absolutely stunning. And here are views that you would see along the highway. This is the mighty Chilkat River looking over at the Cathedral Peaks. Glacier Bay is just on the other side of those mountains. I'll talk about that in a little bit because we're really accessible to multiple areas in Southeast Alaska. And the Chilkat River here, as you can see, it's starting to get smaller and smaller, and it's a glacier river. So it's all braided and spread and fanned out. So in spots, the river gets really shallow, and the fish will actually look like torpedoes as they head up the river, they're in the shallow water, going further up the river, not spawning in the Chilkat itself, but in a tributary or a lake. And so the torpedo effect is like you can see the fish in the water, and the water is just spraying off them. And that's what the eagles and the bears are there, because it's easy spotting and fishing in these glacially fed rivers as the salmon make their way up. So it's pretty cool to be able to actually see the spawning salmon going up. Pinks are really easy to spot. They spawn pretty much anywhere off the river, and we get healthy runs of pink salmon. The Chilkat River itself, this is where I got my start in Alaska. I was a bus driver my first year for a guiding company that did rafting trips, and then I decided I wanted to raft. And so I went through guide school and learned how to do raft the rivers around here, which is trickier than it looks, although it's super mild and mellow. But it's absolutely beautiful. And like I said before, life-changing experience, just being on the water and connected to nature, going in the middle of nowhere. You're off in the highway a little bit, but mostly the river will take you away from it, back and forth. And it's a really special place because then you can go up close to all these bald eagles' nest, and I've seen wolves, moose, of course, bears and eagles, all from just a rafting trip. And there's many, many ways to do it. Jet boat's another popular experience that you can do up here. You can just perch yourself on the side of the road with some binoculars and look for wildlife. And then there's, of course, good fishing from the roadside as well. Here's a little bit of an aerial view. We have a native village up the highway called Klukwan, and that's really a special place, the Village Eternal. It has a very long history in this area of the Chilkat clan being very artsy and spending lots of time on art. Because they had such an abundance of food in the summertime, they were able to store everything away. And because the river is the system the way it is, you have the Surku, the Klahini, and the Chilkat all right in front of their village of Klukwan, where they have a heritage center there, which you can visit, and I'll mention that a little bit later. It's really cool because all those 5 species of salmon are going right in front of the village. So it is a very, very special area. And the 48,000 acres around it is reserved, called the Chilkat Bald Eagle Preserve, just because there are so many bald eagles and it's such a very, very, very unique and special place. Again, the preserve is pretty spectacular. Like I mentioned before, we've got the Chilkat Bald Eagle Festival happening right now. And there's great exploring to do in here. There's a few roads that are kind of like, if you have a 4-wheel drive vehicle, you can access and go back, and there's lots of berry picking that happens. We have lots of wild blueberries and that kind of thing. So it's a really great place just to kind of lose yourself. If you like rocks, there's tons of beautiful river rocks here. And then further on out, bounds up from the Chilkat Bald Eagle Preserve is where Gold Rush Alaska, that television show with Parker Schnabel, got its start, because they're still mining gold on the prospector kind of scale still up there. So it's a really, really special place. And here is a little outside photo of the Chilkat Kwan Heritage Center that sits on the banks of the Chilkat River. And you can see the kind of the Surku Delta out behind it. There are no photographs allowed to be taken inside the building itself, but I assure you that it is a world-class heritage center, and they will take you on a tour inside and tell you all about the culture. And it is just a beautiful experience to be in there and to be surrounded by a lot of their artifacts and to be told by the Tlingit people themselves. It's a great experience. So highly recommend the Chilkat Kwan Heritage Center. Bringing us out and back into town, we have a few other museums I wanted to mention. We have a really unique museum called the Hammer Museum, the only one of its kind, where you can go in and learn everything you've ever wanted to know and more about hammers. People just love this place. From the very first hammer that was ever used to modern day hammers. So it's a really kind of, like I said, quirky place. It's one of those places where you go into and you're guided by someone whose passion is hammers. And so it just really makes it a very unique and fun experience. We also have the Haines Sheldon Museum, which talks about the settlement that was here, talks about the Presbyterian Church and their history here. It talks about the Army and the presence they had here in the 40s and 50s. And then it also touches on Tlingit history. And that museum is just downtown. So it's a great fun thing to do if you're just if you want to learn more about the area, if you're just looking for something to do to come in out of the rain. We have some really great museums. And then I think our most popular museum that we have, Jeff Corwin was in Skagway recently, and he came all the way over to Haines because he wanted to see and experience the Bald Eagle Museum. So this museum has, right now, they currently have 3 bald eagles in there. And so you get to be up close and really feel how large these animals are. And then they've got this wonderful diorama room. It's great for selfies, but it has every single mammal that's in this area, in this room, and it'll tell you all that you need to know about them. So it's a really great, great special place to go, the American Bald Eagle Foundation. We, of course, are very connected to Mother Nature, like I've said many times. And so all of our craft beverages kind of reflect that as well. We have a meadery in town, we have a brewery, and then we also have a distillery. And so these are great places where you can go and sit and talk to a local or talk to the owners themselves. Paul and Jeannie are often the ones in the brewery behind the counter. But they also just make really great products with locally harvested materials. So it's really, really good stuff. The Spruce Tip Blonde Ale, of course, is popular at the brewery, and then all kinds of different cocktails and flavors at the other places as well. The food scene, fish, fish, fish. That's what everyone wants when they come here. It's really great. We've got a couple great food trucks. I could probably tell you 4 different spots where my favorite fish and chips are because they're all good and all unique. But you can always stop by the visitor center here and we can tell you, our staff will tell you what their favorite recommendation is for food, because we do have some really great eateries here. Hiking, we've got some great hiking trails out here. This is a great view from above town looking south towards Juneau. So if you look out on the right-hand side of the screen, that little tiny island there in the murky water, so that's where the ocean is meeting the Chilkat River coming in there. So depending on high or low tide, where that line kind of fluctuates. But down on that Chilkat side to the far end of the peninsula is where Chilkat State Park is, and there's a wonderful trail that goes out that way. On the middle of the screen, there's the Mount Riley hike, which is only, well, it's a little over 2 miles up and a lot of switchbacks, so it's not that hard of a hike. You're definitely going to exert yourself a little bit, but you can get up there and get those panoramic views from all sides. This particular hike here that this photo is taken from is called Mount Rapinski, which is great. It's about 3,600 feet up, and it just gives you stunning views. Like, it's absolutely incredible. Then we have a couple other smaller ones. We have an in-town one that's just kind of nice and flat, that's ADA accessible. And then we have another one, Battery Point, that is just a lovely trail that, you know, it's up and down, but it's not any elevation gain, just as you kind of travel alongside the ocean. So great chances and opportunities here to take some wonderful, wonderful hikes. Day trips were really accessible. A lot of people, which I highly recommend, is you come down from the Yukon area, you fly into Whitehorse, you get your vehicle and you come down and spend some time in Haines, or you're on an RV and you can take a lot of trips out of Haines. A big favorite is Skagway, going over to Skagway for the day. It's a hustle and bustle kind of community. They are scheduled next year to have every single day in the summer, 7 days a week, 4 ships a day. So that's kind of like Disneyland of the North in the best kind of way, where you can go over and like see a show and go to a restaurant and do some fun shopping. But you can come back to Haines at the end of the day and just feel back and immersed in nature. So it's a beautiful thing. And there's a couple different ways to get over there. There's the Alaska Marine Highway. There's daily boat service in the summertime that you can just walk on and walk off. And then the same for Juneau. You can go down to Juneau from here. There's great ways to experience that as well, because if you're in Southeast Alaska, there's so much more to see. Including the Yukon. The Yukon is so iconic and it's so beautiful. So if you're coming up in Southeast Alaska, like make sure you see the Yukon too, because it's so close and it's so different than life here in Haines, or just the scenery in the Alpine area. It's pretty spectacular. So this entire area all in itself, I recommend all of our neighboring communities as well. Like I said, Skagway can be, it's very busy there. You're getting over 1 million people. I think they're going to have 1.4 million people in a 5-month period next year. And so if you want to experience Haines from Skagway, you can do that if you're on a cruise, because like I said, we don't get very many cruises that come here. But if you're coming up on a cruise and you want to come to Haines, like Jeff Corwin did this year, and hundreds of other people, you can just hop on that express boat and come on over. Your cruise lines will sell shore excursions that come to Haines as well, or you can do it on your own on the fast ferry. And so feel free to reach out if you need some more information on that. But we're happy to have you over here. And most ships in Skagway will spend all day. So it's pretty easy to do an excursion in Skagway and in Haines, as long as you're booking through the ship and you know what you're doing. It's a great way to kind of experience all of Southeast Alaska by being in both communities. If you're here as well and you want to go to Juneau, this is one of my recommendations. In the summertime, it's a Fjordlands boat. It'll go from Haines to Skagway, pick up people in Skagway, come back to Haines, and then go to Juneau for the day. And they provide transportation downtown. But if you want to do some whale watching or some wildlife viewing out on the ocean, this is the way to go. This is a local family that owns and operates this boat. And they know what's happening out there, because they're out there every single day, and they will stop and you'll get your whale photos. You can get your lighthouse pictures. And then if you're here in the right time of the year, you can get, which is pretty much the month of May and part of June, you can go to pass by Sea Lion Rock, where there's this, there are hundreds of sea lions, and it's really, really cool thing. Even us locals will go over there because it's so spectacular. But again, it can only be reached by boat. So there's just very few options to get over there, but we're happy to steer you in the right direction if you need that information. And then, of course, Glacier Bay National Park, our mountain range, we share it right on the other side. Some of those ice fields we can see from here are connected to Glacier Bay National Park. So you can either ferry down to Juneau and cut across on a different ferry to get over to Glacier Bay National Park, or you can go flight seeing. Seeing it by the air is absolutely spectacular, and I highly recommend doing, if you're in Southeast Alaska, do any kind of flight excursion. But if you can get one that goes over to Glacier Bay National Park, you will not regret it. We call it speckism, because once you get up there and you see how little our communities are and how vast the ice fields and the mountains and the ocean and the inlets are, it's really kind of special to feel and to be reminded that we are just little specks on the planet, and how beautiful this area is. It should be experienced by the air. So I highly recommend a flight scenic over to Glacier Bay National Park. We are known for our events. Like I said, we don't have a lot of cruise ships, but we have some really good events, and town will sell out. So you can plan your trip around one of these. Just book early. But they are a lot of fun. We've got a big snowmobile race that happens in February, and Winterfest, where for the first time we're going to actually have fireworks for Winterfest, because we always have them for 4th of July, or often if there's a burn ban, we don't have them. But that's not a great show, to be honest, because it's so light here on the 4th of July. But we're excited to start adding fireworks to our Winterfest. So that's going to be super exciting. And then there, like I talked about before, we've got the bike race that happens, and the same weekend we have a fisherman's barbecue. This is for just a $10 suggested donation. You don't even have to, it can be free. The fishermen here put on this local barbecue, and it's just really good food with live music, and a lot of us locals will just serve up food and just welcome people to our community. So it's pretty special just to kind of share that bounty every year. We all just kind of come together as a community and welcome all of our visitors and neighbors as like you are a local for the day. And it's just a lot of fun. And that's kind of how life is here. You just kind of feel right at home, and you make those connections with locals, and it really makes for a pretty special visit to Alaska. The Chilkoot Bald Eagle Festival, I wanted to touch on that because it just happened 2 weekends ago. We always have it the second week in November, so that happened pretty early this year, the way the calendar was. But really, all in November is really, really special for bald eagle viewing. My favorite photographer, Tom Ganner, took this photo on the left. That is just from last week. Again, the bear and the eagle photo, if you're into photography, you can get those photos pretty easily yourself. And the two middle ones are just the typical ones where you can find 4 eagles sitting in one tree perched together, or they're constantly just fighting over salmon. Even there's abundance of salmon in the rivers right now, they still will fight and squawk over it. And it's really great to get out there and experience. I think I've spent since the beginning of November, probably at least 6 days out there. I have plans, like blocked out half my day tomorrow, because I'm going to go up to the Chilkoot Bald Eagle Preserve and just hang out. It's right from the roadside. You don't have to have anything special except for warm clothes. Make sure your camera battery's charged, and just head up the highway and stake your claim out and sit there and wait for the eagles to come and feed on the salmon and watch out for bears. It's really, really special. But the festival that itself is this weekend long event that the community all comes out together and puts. And the American Bald Eagle Foundation will give a bunch of different seminars on just all of the flora and fauna in this area and what makes it so special. And so it's really great to come for this particular festival, because you can really educate yourself and then be immersed and surrounded by bald eagles. Cluck-One as well up the highway participates. And so it's really great to have all of town open, all the museums open, and get to be surrounded by hundreds and hundreds of bald eagles. Winter months, we are a year-round destination. It's great because folks in the Yukon will come here, and it will be 20 degrees out. And to them, that they're like, oh, it's so balmy and warm here, because they're used to 40 below. It's a different kind of cold up there. And so we had a lot of snowmobiling. A lot of people come for photography here. We have a wonderful sledding hill that's lit up. I mean, it is absolutely amazing. So that's a lot of fun for the kids to do. And then you can ski up on the pass, lots of backcountry skiing, but we have lots and lots of groomed trails around our community. We're on an app called Nordic Pulse, so you can get the latest updated trail reports on what the cross-country ski trails are like. And it's a great way to spend some time and to get out into Mother Nature again. Or you can just walk on the beach, and the ice formations are absolutely stunning. Currently, today was the first day that temperatures dropped into the 20s, and it's supposed to be that way all week. So the ice is starting to form now, and it's absolutely beautiful outside. It's great. And then, of course, winter, the next slide, I can't talk about winter and not talk about heli skiing. We are a world-class heli ski destination. You just put it in YouTube and look up heli skiing, Haines, Alaska. Warren Miller's been here, and quite a few other famous photographers come and do little films about the area. But it's extreme skiing on these peaks that are all around us, and it's world-class. People from all over the planet come to experience skiing here in Haines, and it's a beautiful thing. Springtime, this might be my most favorite time of the year. I mean, it's after winter, so that's always nice. The daylight's returning. But the hooligan there, it's a small smelt-type fish. They're known as the candlefish because they're so oily, so the clinkets here will still dip net them. But they'll come up on the Lutex side. They'll go on both sides, but in the Lutex side, they get really confined to the small area, going up and spawning just in the Chilkoot River. And the inlet itself, it just comes alive. We say thousands of birds. It's hundreds and thousands of birds that come here in the springtime following the fish. So that's late April and early May. It's absolutely spectacular. Living by the water, it's so loud, but I love it so much. I can't even describe what it's like to be around, and there's all different sorts of birds that are passing through here. And it's just a really, really special time to be in Haines. And yeah, that's pretty much all I had for the basics and what our community is all about. We're happy to help you here at the Visitor Center. Our website is visithaines.com, so you can check that out for links for any kind of information, accommodations, festivals, anything that you'd like to look up. Our contact information is on there as well. And then, of course, we have our social media pages. If you've liked these photos, I mean, please follow us on our social media pages, because it's the favorite part of my job. I'm going to go up to the Eagle Preserve tomorrow and take some photos, because I want to share that all with you, and we love sharing our home. And that's just a very common theme here, that we feel so fortunate to live in such a beautiful and special place that we love sharing it with our visitors.
Amazing. Thank you so much. Okay, I'm going to turn off the screen sharing. There we go. Now you can see both of our faces a little bit more, because we were teeny tiny, because we wanted the pictures to say the 1,000 words. I actually want to have two quick sidebars. So I don't talk, because I could also talk about these destinations, but I am, like many of you watching, just a visitor. So two quick points that I wanted to make. First one, your pictures, Reba, of the Chilkoot River. The last time I was in Haines, it was pouring, and we were driving up the Haines Highway, and I did not know it was that pretty, and I'm even more disappointed. Now I have to come back, because that is stunningly beautiful. We didn't see anything. Nothing at all.
Oh, that's too bad. Was it just one? Oh, that's too bad. We often get RVers that come down the highway, and they're like, holy moly, like, I didn't know it was so pretty. We would have, planned for longer, or that kind of thing, because they're blown away by it.
That was I don't think I've ever really seen photos that accurately captured that. Basically, the story is that I was there to meet a group to go do the float down the Tatchinchini and Alsek rivers from BC. We could talk about that offline, but we only had the one day. So I came in by boat and then went up the highway to go embark on the river float. And yeah, it was miserable weather, but it was one of the worst days of the whole trip. So I'll take it the day we were in the van. The other tip I wanted to put out there for any of you watching is, if you are going to Skagway on your cruise and you are looking at Haines and trying to get a sense of, is Haines somewhere that you want to visit as part of your port day? The giveaway of which excursions are in Haines versus Skagway is the wildlife. If you see excursions that say eagles or bears, they're in Haines. They're not in Skagway. Not to say Skagway doesn't have wildlife viewing opportunities, but I can tell you with 100% certainty that even if they don't tell you that excursion's in Haines, it's in Haines. So if you're trying to decide what to do in Skagway and you're seeing these wildlife excursions, they're in Haines. So that's how you know you're going to end up coming over to this community. And then, like Reba said, you could do 2 half days if that works in your ship schedule. Yeah, just a pro tip that I've learned from reading excursion descriptions for many years. But okay, I wanted to jump into the Q&A because we have lots of them. Actually, I'm going to start with a question from me, which is that, is there anything important, new, exciting openings coming in 2025 that visitors should be aware of?
I wouldn't say new openings, not that I know of. Nope, nothing's on the radar. Sorry.
No, that's not it.
Like that. That's what makes us kind of unique. Like it really is going back in time. Yeah. We just enjoy the seasons and the wildlife, and that's kind of enough for us.
Yeah. And you know, that just means that the video never goes out of date, people. When you're watching this, you don't have to worry that something that Reba's talked about is no longer accurate, because it is true. I mean, I've last visited Haines in 2022 and you know, nothing has changed, but that's a great thing because it's great and it stays great. Everything, all the great restaurants, the meadery, the bar, the distillery, everything's the same. And that means you can enjoy it whenever you visit. Okay. Correct. Now let's jump into questions from other folks. So I have 2 questions that are kind of sides of the same coin. So the first question comes from Amy, and she's curious if there's anything to do without a car.
Yeah, well, the museums, I touched on the museums. That's really popular. And then doing the shops downtown. I didn't talk about our local shops, but I would like to mention them just because they are completely different than what like you're going to experience in our neighboring communities. And that is because we do have the largest artisan per capita here. The population is astounding. And a lot of them, if they don't have their own shops, which a lot of them do, they've got their art in local shops. So it's really great to go around and do a little shopping here because you're more than likely going to talk to the artists themselves. So that's pretty special and unique. And there's just lots of wonderful like raw gold that's found here that they use, or they carve lots of carvings that happens here. So it's really beautiful and unique art. We have totem walking. We have lots of different maps here at the Visitor Center. We have a totem pole one that you can go. We have hiking maps, so you can easily get to the trailheads and check out the map system that we have available. Or let's see, and then just beach walking and experiencing it on foot that way. Like going over to the Chilkat side, it's probably just 1 mile. You'd kind of just go up and over the peninsula from where your cruise ship is, and you could be right on the Mud Bay Beach area, which is absolutely spectacular.
Amazing. Thank you. Okay, so here's the other side of the coin, which this question comes from Stacy. If you rent a car, is there a lot to see and do? I think the answer is yes, but what would you recommend? If you're going to rent a car, what are the top 3 things you'd recommend to do?
Well, I would recommend driving out to the Chilkoot area. That's absolutely amazing. So you can go out to the lake, you can go out to the river, and then after that, go down to the Chilkat area, I think, and then up the highway. If you can get out to all 3 of those places in one day, I guarantee you that's a good day. I mean, you're just going to see how diverse this peninsula and this area is. You will see wildlife. And then you can stop and lunch and have town, or we've got a great restaurant out at 33 Mile on the highway. And the scenery up at 33 Mile area, 35 Mile right past the restaurant is absolutely spectacular. You're on a Klahini River. You've got mountains just shooting on up. I mean, it's absolutely stunning. So yeah, absolutely. I do recommend a car. And again, if you're on foot, you can also rent it. We have bike rentals. We have moped rentals. There's electric bikes as well. So that's always a fun way and an inexpensive way, but also like, you know, reconnecting and being outdoors. If it's a good weather day, get on one of those bicycles and go up to any one of these areas, and you won't regret it. It'll be a great experience.
Amazing. Thank you. Carrie is curious about, you did cover transfers between Haines and Skagway kind of in the summer season. What are the options in the off season, the winter season?
In the off season, we have, well, you can fly. Alaska Seaplanes does go back and forth. And then the most popular way, and the way us locals go, is the Alaska Marine Highway, which is a state ferry system that you can hop on and hop off. We're one of the most popular stops here because we are connected to the highway system, and Juneau's got a really large population and it's the capital. And so we get a lot of day boats that come up and from Juneau that go specifically just to Haines and Skagway and back and forth. So it's really easy to get on the day boats and go back. Typically, you can go, like if I'm going to go to Skagway for the weekend because I've got a lot of friends there, I'll go over on a Friday afternoon and then take the Sunday ferry back, or you can do that vice versa. So it's really easy to spend a weekend or spend a couple days in our neighboring communities that way by traveling on the ferry system.
Yeah, the ferry is wonderful. As you were talking, I was like, I should see if they want to do a webinar because I've never reached out to them. And, you know, I will say that they've kind of said they're not aiming at being a tourism business. Their goal really, if the quick tangent, is to serve the locals and the local communities and provide that necessary transportation infrastructure. But when you're visiting, you can take advantage of it too. So yeah, the ferry would be actually really, really helpful. Okay, we're going to go one last question. This one's actually from me again. And then if you have any other questions, don't forget, you can put them in the comments. So if a person who's watching this is planning to drive the Alcan, they're going to be coming or going, maybe both. How many days would you advise, other than as many as you can? How many days would you give like a nice sampling to spend in Haines?
I would say 3 to 5. I mean, you really want to be immersed here and to experience that quietness and that peacefulness, and make sure you get to see the bears or the eagles or whatever it is you really want to. And so, you know, it's good to have a little time to do that and to disconnect. But also, if you're just going to be on the Alcan, take that ferry ride, take that Fiordlands ride down to Juneau, take a boat trip over to Skagway just for the day, see what the rest of Southeast is like, because this is really a nice hub. And it's a great place to see other communities from. But really, you want to experience that reconnecting to nature, and there's just so much to see here, and it's a different pace. It's really nice and quiet, but there's so much beauty in that. I mean, isn't that what vacation is all about? Like, just to really connect with yourself again and whoever you're traveling with. And yeah, I would definitely recommend 3 to 5 days.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, I would say for anyone watching, if you're planning to drive the Alcan, you obviously have a little bit of flexibility in your time. You're spending more time than the average cruise passenger, or maybe even other independent travelers. So take advantage of it and spend a few extra days in Haines. And now you know there's a lifetime of things to do. So you're not going to run out of amazing experiences to have. So okay, we will wrap it up there. I want to say thank you so much, Reba, for joining me and sharing. You know, every destination approaches this seminar series differently, and you had so many incredible photos, because I think that people don't really realize what Haines offers because it is sort of understated, is how I would say it. And so your photos do a great job of stating it very loudly and clearly how incredible the area is. As a reminder to everyone watching, again, you can put any questions you want in the comments below. I will keep an eye on those. I'll reach out to Reba if we need any additional information. I've also put links to visit Haines and their social media in the caption of this video, and a couple resources that I have from my visits to Haines, which are just based on my experience. Obviously, visithaines.com has all of the information that you might need, depending on whatever your travel budget, schedule, interests might be. And with that, I will sign off. Say thank you so much. Thank you again for joining me, Reba.
Thank you so much. Have a great day.